Today we will talk about the prejudices, myths, and misconceptions surrounding pirates, how they dressed, why medical supplies often appeared in hostage ransom demands instead of gold, and when piracy actually began. Get comfortable, friends. We're about to tell you everything. Piracy is traditionally associated with the period from 1650 to 1730, the so-called Golden Age of piracy. The Age of Great Discoveries brought the importance and popularity of sea routes to the forefront like never before in history. The Caribbean Sea was especially hot during this time, where routes from Europe converged to the Spanish colonies. However, even during the Golden Age of piracy, another sea route was just as, if not more, important to pirates: the Indian Ocean. Although fewer movies are made about it, in reality, Anglo-American pirates were present in Yemen, India, and Madagascar almost as much as along the shores of the Americas. There was even a route called the Pirate Circle. Just as there are prepared tourist routes today, pirates also had a map of convenient routes for their expeditions. They typically began somewhere in Bermuda, the Bahamas, or even New York, then traveled across the Atlantic to the west coast of Africa. After rounding the continent, pirates would stop in the eastern part, or Madagascar, and then, if they wished, sail on to Yemen or India. Along the entire route, there were either fully pirate-controlled or corsair-friendly bases where pirates could resupply and make repairs. It was also the perfect route for plundering. On the way from the Atlantic to Africa, pirates could raid traders heading to the New World. On the west coast of Africa, those heading to the Cape of Good Hope. Then after Madagascar, a true feast began in any direction. Yemen served as a transit point for all travelers from the Red Sea to India, especially Muslim pilgrims heading to Mecca. Religion obligated them to make the pilgrimage, and the ships of wealthy Muslims traveling from India to the Holy Land were like Disneyland for pirates. If it wasn't pilgrimage season, the Pirate Circle offered the opportunity to attack British East India Company merchant ships, which were actively trading with India at the time. Like other East India companies, almost all of them made stops at a transit point on Reunion Island, just 700 kilometers from Madagascar. Thus, the Pirate Circle offered a wide variety of ways for privateers to earn a living. In general, it's important to note that the Caribbean Sea was far from the only, nor always the most popular region for European pirates. And the chronology of the Golden Age of piracy is at least debatable. Among researchers, there is an opinion that the Golden Age should be considered as a much older period. During ancient Rome, pirates were so powerful that they waged full-scale wars with entire states. According to Plutarch, the Cilician pirates alone had a fleet of 30,000 sailors and thousands of ships. What is especially striking is how Plutarch describes these ships. According to the historian, it wasn't so much the pirates themselves that caused fear, but their showmanship. Pirates of that time were completely different from the ruthless criminals of popular culture. They wore extravagant clothes and sailed on ships with gilded sails, purple awnings, and silver oars. Why don't skeletons fight? Ironically, the image of pirates in the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise is more akin to the description of pirates from the Roman era. In fact, one of the captives of the Cilician pirates was Gaius Julius Caesar. When he heard that the pirates demanded a ransom of 20 talents for him, he was outraged and demanded at least 50. While Caesar's assistants were gathering the ransom, he, according to historians, spent his time exercising, studying the pirates' way of life, giving advice and even leading them at times. However, after paying the ransom and being freed, he gathered a fleet, returned, and slaughtered all his captors. Such was Roman humor. Mark Antony, or orator, Mark Antony of Crete, Servilius Vatia. This is a list of prominent Roman commanders who could do nothing against the Cilician pirates. And it could go on. Only Gnaeus Pompeius Magnus was able to defeat the Cilician pirates in 67 BC, whose military power rivaled that of strong states of the time. And even then, he defeated them largely by offering them the option to surrender and legalize their activities. This was not the type of pirate raids you'd see on 17th century ships. Pirates of the Roman era were much tougher, more colorful, and influential figures. It's all the more ironic that Hollywood hasn't made much of them, though it would have been amusing to see how film critics would describe the golden sails of Roman pirates based on historical records as unrealistic. The flamboyance and appearance of pirates from the classical Golden Age is also a separate story. The long coat, often seen on pirates, is actually more of a 19th century accessory than a 17th century one, and even then it was more common among the bourgeoisie. The real Captain Jack Sparrow, had he existed, would have likely made moviegoers laugh with his appearance. In the golden age of piracy, corsairs wore comical balloon pants or even long skirt-like shorts, similar to those popular with women today. No offense, it's just that such loose clothing allowed for better airflow, made walking on water more comfortable, and caused fewer skin problems from long periods of wearing tight clothing. Moreover, whenever possible, pirates loved to wear expensive, fashionable, and stylish clothing. In movies, pirates are often depicted as ragged. In reality, there were no issues with pirates who, after raiding a ship, would take its expensive clothes and wear them. Why not, considering that a pirate's life is short and you should make the most of it? Ironically, the ragged crews of pirate ships depicted in Hollywood films are actually more representative of the sailors on military ships of that era. In Pirates of the Caribbean, corsairs are constantly battling admirals and fighters in beautiful uniforms. In reality, naval ranks, uniforms, and inadequate pay came much later, closer to the beginning of the 19th century. In the 17th century, at the peak of piracy, things were much more dismal. Admirals were not the well-groomed graduates with wigs, but simply experienced men who, fortunately for governments, agreed to work as officers. As for sailors, they worked for miserable wages and under harsh conditions, which is why they lived miserable lives and looked like ragged beggars. Pirates, on the other hand, tried to drink as little as possible, dressed in clothing from the best designers of the time, and at least nominally followed a code of conduct because, without it, an efficient raiding machine couldn't be built. Piracy and treasure in popular culture, that's another interesting myth. Now close your eyes and imagine that you are a pirate in the 17th century on a ship a week away from the nearest land. What would you want to steal from another ship? Gold and silver? Or perhaps food, clothes, tools, and medicines? The answer is obvious. Money is, of course, important, but the priority items for any pirate crew were far more down to earth. Even the legendary Blackbeard, who had the means to mount expeditions in luxury, often acted this way. In 1718, when he blockaded the port of Charleston aboard his flagship Revenge of Queen Anne, he sent the city a very detailed description of a crate of medical supplies in exchange for the release of hostages. And when his pirates received the supplies, Blackbeard honestly released the hostages. In fact, when Revenge of Queen Anne is raised in 2015, syringes, scalpels, and quite advanced medical equipment for its time will be found. Pirates paid great attention to health. And when health was good, gold wasn't even the top priority. Because surprisingly, ships laden with gold sailed far less frequently than those carrying fabric, wood, food, and other goods. Any self-respecting pirate captain had to be a trader as well, knowing where to safely and profitably offload their loot. Lastly, but certainly not least, is the myth about pirate ships. Yes, the aforementioned Revenge of Queen Anne was a massive frigate, no less impressive than the flagship ships of the era. However, for the overwhelming majority of pirates, open sea battles and honest boardings were the last thing they aimed for. The ideal operation was something like the one Pierre Le Grand pulled off. With only 28 pirates, Pierre, in 1662, captured a Spanish galleon with a few hundred soldiers and a vice admiral of Spain aboard. The secret to success? A stealth mission at night and the capture of the admiral by a small group of scouts, after which the ship was handed over without a drop of blood being spilled. As a result, pirates needed smaller, more maneuverable ships to quickly escape it after their bold crimes. That's mostly what they sailed. Henry Morgan looted Panama in 1671 with a two-masted schooner as his flagship. Le Grand himself even sailed on a bark. And in 90% of cases, pirates preferred to act boldly, stealthily, with minimal combat and confrontation, as the odds were always against them. That's all for today. If you like the stories about Roman pirates, let us know in the comments and we'll make a video about them.